Good morning. First of all, I would want to welcome you to the webinar this morning. I would like to introduce Karen Pucket, who is our presenter. Karen Pucket is the Director of Workplace Safety with the Texas Division of Workers' Compensation. She is responsible for the state's occupational safety and health functions, including employer consultations and OSHA compliance assistance, insurance company safety regulation, and safety violation investigation. She is also responsible for providing workplace safety and health educational materials, training, and outreach activities, as well as the collection of Texas injury and fatality data for the Bureau of Labor Statistics. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and pass it over to Karen.
Thank you, Katie. Good morning. I'd like to thank you for that kind introduction and thank the National Safety Council for hosting this event today. I just want to give you a little bit of background about the Division of Workers' Compensation. We are the state agency that is responsible for regulating the system by which injured employees receive benefits. But one of our other key legislative duties is to promote safe and healthy workplaces and try to help employers through educational and awareness programs prevent injuries in the workplace to keep people from getting hurt. So today our focus is going to be on driving safety. And just some kind of overall statistics. These are from the Texas Department of Transportation crash data for 2014. There were no days in 2014 where a person did not die on the roadway, on a roadway in Texas. And in fact, November 7th in the year 2000 was the last time that nobody died on the road in Texas. So that's a long time for, 15 years that every day at least one person has died on the road. In 2014, over 3,500 people died, and as of this morning, the TxDOT website said that 2,662 people have died in crashes so far this year in 2015. So, there are a lot of roadways in Texas. There's a lot of exposure for people to get in crashes. And, just some of these statistics show the impact that it has when people are distracted while they're driving, when they're not wearing the restraints that come with the vehicles or the proper safety equipment, or when they're driving in an impaired state. So, we just want people to think about overall, both when they're driving on a personal level and a professional level, that these are very serious hazards that are out there. And when we talk about occupational driving safety programs, what you teach, what culture you institute in your workplace can overlap into employees' personal lives as well. So what we're going to talk about today and through this series of webinars is why employers specifically should think about transportation safety, what kinds of things employers should think about when they're developing an effective driving safety program, and what resources are available to help you do that. So the reason that the Division of Workers' Compensation and, of course, the National Safety Council does focus on transportation from an occupational standpoint is because transportation incidents are the leading cause of work-related fatalities. And in fact, in 2014, according to the Census of Fatal Occupational Injuries through the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 78% of those transportation incidents were roadway crashes. And what some of the concern is that OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, is the regulatory entity in Texas for occupational safety issues, and they don't always have jurisdiction over all roadway crashes. In fact, just a fraction probably of those crashes do they have jurisdiction over. So a lot of, there's not a regulatory agency that's necessarily looking at things from an occupational standpoint, unless, of course, it's a commercial motor vehicle driver under the Department of Transportation regulations and DPS enforcement activities. So there's sort of a gap in addressing occupational fatalities on the roadways. And there are lots of industries and occupations that have people who drive either incidentally or regularly for work, and it's probably one of the most dangerous things that any of us are going to do, and in our course of our job, and a lot of us do it on a very regular basis. So it is a big concern. So here's just a few more statistics about fatalities in Texas. I told you that transportation incidents were the leading cause. 45% of all fatalities. That's 237 people died in 2014 in a transportation-related incident. And just to put this in perspective, the second leading cause of work-related fatalities in 2014 was contact with objects or equipment, and that number was 76. And then the third leading cause was falls, and that number was 67. So you can see that by far transportation incidents are the leading cause, and it's something that we don't always think about as being particularly hazardous because it's so commonly done. Of these transportation incidents, 57% of the occupations were not motor vehicle operators. So these are other occupations like sales people, healthcare providers, protective services, building maintenance and repair occupations, or installation occupations. So these are people who have some other job besides being a driver who are involved in these incidents. And in addition, there were almost 4,000 cases in 2014 where it wasn't a fatality, but the injured employee ended up missing work because of the accident or the incident. So it's a serious issue for employers to think about. And so what we want to encourage employers to do is to implement programs in their workplace to help them prevent these types of hazards, and have written programs in place and enforce them so that their employees understand what the expectations are and how to prevent these types of incidents. And as with any written program in the workplace, regardless of what the safety topic is, we do recommend that employers review those programs on a regular basis and not just write it and put it on a shelf and be done with it. So we have come up with some guidance for what would be considered part of an effective occupational driving safety program. And there are 4 main elements included in this: the roadway, workplace, the driver, the vehicle, and the environment. This particular webinar, we're going to talk about the roadway workplace, and we will cover the other areas in the next 2 webinars that are coming up. So this discussion today is, talking about the driver safety policies, motor vehicle record checks, driver assessment, journey management, and applicable laws. So we think an effective driving accident prevention plan should specify the qualifications for employees who drive on the job for you and have policy statements that are related to that. Commercial motor vehicle operators have certain qualifications that are required to obtain their license to begin with, and then there are some medical, physical exams that have to happen on a regular basis. There are motor vehicle record checks and that sort of thing, but that doesn't always happen with non-commercial drivers. So we do think employers should look at this as a whole and not just those whose occupation is to drive, and establish a policy that there's a minimum number of moving violation convictions that we will, as an employer, accept and allow this person to drive on a job for us, and then assess their skills, assess their ability to drive. As I mentioned, look at both commercial and non-commercial drivers in your program. We do think it's important that motor vehicle record checks are done. A lot of, as an example, if somebody has a home health agency and they need to hire a nurse, and they are probably going to verify the nursing license and check with the licensing board to see if there are any complaints or sanctions against that person, assess their nursing skills, and, talk about a lot of the hazards that can be associated with that, like bloodborne pathogen exposure, et cetera, other biological hazards. But then they're put in a vehicle and drive for a large portion of their day every day, and if that employer is not looking at that angle, that side of the hazard exposure, then they could be at risk, the employee could be at risk, or other drivers, on the roadway could be at risk. So we do think it's important, if you have somebody who's going to be driving for you, that you maybe check their driving record prior to hiring, and probably, especially if you have a policy in place where you have that minimum number of motor vehicle moving violation convictions, that you look at those record checks, or you do record checks with some regularity thereafter. That's going to give you an idea of what the person's driving behavior is. But that being said, you probably also want to do some skills assessment to see for yourself how they are behind the wheel. So that could include, as part of your interview process, doing some driver screening tests, see how they perform behind the wheel. There is technology out there that enables in-vehicle monitoring, so it can track lots of different data points about the vehicle in motion and stopping and telemetry and a lot of different things. It can be very sophisticated. And, it could be costly. It's just a matter of you as an employer determining what your exposure is, how many vehicles, how many drivers you have out there, how many vehicles are involved, and the distance they're traveling, and there are a lot of factors to take into consideration whether or not you want a system that robust. Other options would be for you to just actually observe that person driving, or have them shadow with another driver that's familiar with the type of vehicle that person, your new person, is going to be driving as part of their job. Another area is journey management. We think it's really important that employers think about whether or not putting an employee on the road is really necessary to begin with. And if it is, to perform the job or get the work done, if it is necessary, and to minimize it as much as possible. And then when they do drive, to have communication between the supervisor and the employee in terms of how are we going to choose the best and safest way for me as an employee to make this trip. Choose the safest route, look at road conditions or things that are going on that could affect the trip. What time of day will they be traveling? What kind of vehicle are they going to be in? Is the vehicle in good repair? What other issues are out there that you might want to avoid or take an alternate route to reduce the risk for that employee? And so it's really important for the employer to know, the itinerary, where the employee is going to go, and that you work together to make sure that the safest choice is made. And, of course, that the employee is not driving, after working a long shift as well, because that fatigue comes into play there. And we'll cover that in the next webinar in this series. So it's just something to think about. Do employees really have to be driving? And if they do, what's the safest way to go about that? And finally, in terms of your policies and your written program, you do want to make sure that they aren't in conflict with and that they support any applicable laws, federal, state, and local laws. There are a lot of local jurisdictions that have passed laws pertaining to distracted driving, in particular use of cell phones and texting and that sort of thing. So you certainly want your policies to be supportive of the actual laws that are out there. So it's important to do that kind of research as well. So we have a checklist that we've developed to help employers sort of assess what their particular driving safety risks and program are. So I'll just kind of show you a little bit of what that looks like. This is on our website, and it's free. You download it and, use it at will. So this checklist covers the 4 elements that we're talking about in this series, gives a little bit of background as we're discussing throughout this series. And then this checklist is just a tool, has thought-provoking questions on it for employers to take a step back and think about what applies to my workplace, and if it does apply, have I dealt with it? Have I addressed it? Do my policies and procedures safeguard my employees? and, you know, reduce the risk to your company as well. So these are just meant to be provocative questions. If you answer no to any of these, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's bad. It just maybe doesn't apply to your workplace, or maybe it means, yes, you know, this is something we probably need to shore up our policy on and, you know, think a little harder about. So this checklist has questions about the 3 other areas too, and I'll get into that some more in our next webinar. I encourage you to use this just to, you know, think about how this applies to you and whether or not you need to take action. We think any employer that has people who are driving should be taking action and thinking about this. So on our website, again, we have the 4 areas here, and when you click in each area, you know, it changes on the inside. When you go there, it gives a little bit of an explanation of why this is important and then provides resources. So here are several sample policies, driving policies, drug and alcohol policies. You know, you want to look at the insurability of your drivers too. A lot of employers that have employees who drive may be having this conversation with their insurance company, their workers' comp insurance company, or their auto liability company if they have a fleet. You know, just to think about, if I've got people on the road, how does that affect my insurance? And by the way, your workers' compensation insurance company is a resource for you. Insurance companies in Texas are required to provide accident prevention services to their policyholders, so we encourage you to contact their loss control departments. So anyway, here's a link where you can go to the Department of Public Safety to request your motor vehicle records. We've got different guides, and here's some place where you can check road conditions, et cetera. So just various publicly available resources that you can use as an employer to help you develop your plan. Then we also have other resources, like if you're looking for training. If you're listening to this webinar, in all likelihood you're familiar with the Our Driving Concern program with the National Safety Council, but here's a link to their website if you're looking for the Train the Trainer course to help you bring driving safety curriculum into your workplace to train your employees. Some various entities that provide different types of training. Some of it's free, some of it, you know, there is a fee involved. So this section does provide various resources in different industries in addition to the resources that you're going to find here specific to these topics. So hopefully that this will be useful for you, and you'll have a chance to go to our website and tool around in there and see if there's anything that would be of value to you. Again, here is the link to that driving safety website, and the Division of Workers' Compensation also has a variety of other programs and services to help employers prevent injuries, both in driving safety issues and any other occupational safety or health issue. So we encourage you to go to our website and look around there, or please call us or email us if you have any questions or like to follow up. And just a reminder, we'll be doing the second part of this series a week from today on October 29th, where we're going to be talking about the driver portion of your occupational driving safety program and what kind of elements you might want to consider putting into that portion of your program. So this concludes our webinar today. I appreciate everybody for attending and hope you have a safe day. Thank you.